Hey there guys, this is Mr. Benanti, and we're going to be starting on lesson 1 for decimals and fractions. And I think the important thing that we should keep in mind whenever we're working on math is why are we doing math? And in order to know what we're doing, we have to ask ourselves some essential questions. And in this case, we're trying to figure out when is it better to use a fraction, a decimal, or a percent. You guys will come to find that decimals, percents, and fractions, they are really important, especially when we deal with real world scenarios like money, I know is a big one. Or even how many times have you said to your friend, hey man, can I have half of that? I do it all the time, especially to my wife. So let's go ahead and just dive right in. Real world link. The instruments below show the part of students in the school orchestra that play each type of instrument. So first, let's go ahead and look here at the brass family. We have 0.25, a decimal, or 25 hundredths. Now, it says to write 0.25 into word form, and as we just discovered, it is 25 hundredths. So let's go ahead and just write that out. 25. And again, we've got a modification to hundreds. It's hundredths. Hundredths. Got to keep in mind this end here when we're talking about decimals. So, another important thing to keep in mind with decimals and fractions is that they're a lot easier to work with when we think about them out of 100. 100, in this case, is one whole. So if we have 0.25 of a whole, and if we have it out of hundredths, 100, then we're going to have 25 out of 100. Pretty easy so far. Let's move on. We're going to look at the percussion. Write 0.15, 0.15 in word form. Well, here we had 25 hundredths, so here we might have something like 15 hundredths. Again, keeping in mind that how that hundred changes at the end when we're talking about decimals. Now, if 0.25 was written as 25 over 100, then we can probably assume or deduce that 0.15 as a fraction will be 15 over 100. Doing great so far, I'm sure. So let's move on to the strings. Here we don't have as clean of a number because it's not out of 5. But luckily that's not going to change anything for us. We're just going to have to look carefully at how we're doing our word form. So write 0.31 in word form. Well, nothing really changes here. 31. Notice how I have my hyphen. 31 hundredths. Again, paying close attention to that. Now let's write 0.31 as a fraction. Well, nothing changes. 31 out of 100. In other words, 31 over 100 can be written as 0.31. All right, let's look here at the woodwind. Write 0.29 in word form. Okay, so we have 29. That's what we should be first looking at, 29. And then the place that it's in is the hundredths, so 29 hundredths. Good. And as things have been the same so far, we'll write 0.29 as a fraction, which is of course just 29 over 100. Let's go ahead and move on to page 91. Example 4. The average length of a conch shell is 9.85 inches. Express 9.85 inches as a mixed number in simplest form. All right, so here we have this mixed number, which we can work with. We have 9.85, which also equals 985 over 100. So we have 85 100ths, 9 and 85 over 100. So we need to simplify like we did before with our fractions. Our whole number, 9, isn't going to change. In fact, the whole thing isn't going to change, and we'll see why in just a minute. But in order to simplify this fraction, we have to find that greatest common factor again. In this case, I'm going to say it's 5. If you want to check the work, you can simply take 17 times 5. 7 times 5 is 35. Carry the 3. 5 times 1 is 3. Or 5 times 1 is 5 plus 3 is 8. 85, which is what we worked with our original numerator. So we simplified and we got 9 and 7 twentieths. Or 9 and 17 twentieths, excuse me. So 9 and 17 over 20. So let's go ahead and try this one. It takes approximately 4.65 quarts of milk to make a pound of cheese. Cheese, delicious. Express this amount as a mixed number in simplest form. So let's go ahead and take a look. We have 4.65 or 4 and 65 hundredths. So we will take 4, our whole number, and over 65 hundredths. Now, I would like to think again, like we saw in our last one, that our greatest common factor probably is 5. So I need to take 65 and divide it by 5. So let's make sure we brush up on some of these skills. So let's take 65 divided by 5. 5 goes into 6 one time. 5 times 1 is 5. Then I subtract. 6 times 5 is 1. I bring down my 5. 5 goes into 15 3 times. 5 times 3 is 15, and these cancel each other out, because if we subtracted, it would equal 0. Good. Now, if we recall from before, we can use some mental math and do 100 divided by 5 in our head, because 10 divided by 5 is 2. And so all I need to do is use my 0. So that means that we're going to have 4 and 13 twentieths, because 100 divided by 5 is 20. Very good. Write fractions and mixed numbers as decimals. For fractions with denominators that are factors of 10, 100, or 1000, you can write equivalent fractions with these denominators. So, write 9 over 12 as a decimal. And for the first method, we're going to write an equivalent fraction. In this case, we took 9/12 and we simplified it to 3/4. In order to do that, we divided both the numerator and the denominator by 3. Now, in order to get it out of 10, 100, or 1000, we have to look and see what number we can easily multiply by, both the numerator and the denominator. And in this case, we did 25. 4 times 25 is 100, and 3 times 25 is 75. So now we have 75 over 100, which then equals 0.75. So it's 75 hundredths, because the 5 is in the hundredths place. Hey guys, I know that I didn't go through every problem on the assignment that was assigned for today. You have a couple pages to get done just for one day worth of work. I wanted to make sure that you had a little bit of room to be able to work independently on some of it. So as you're watching this video, one, I wanted to keep it a little bit shorter so that we don't just have to sit in front of the screen all day. And otherwise, I want you to be able to work on some independently. But obviously, I'll be available for questions, especially on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. But I'm sure that you guys are going to do really great on this. If you need any reminders, let me know. I can give you a hand. But try your best, and you're going to do a great job. Thanks, guys.